Maya Thompson clutched her worn canvas bag tighter as she walked past the gleaming windows of downtown's most expensive restaurant. The smell of grilled seafood and fresh bread made her stomach growl painfully. She hadn't eaten a proper meal in 3 days, surviving only on water and the occasional cracker she found in her bag. At 23, Maya had dreams bigger than her current reality. She had moved to the city 6 months ago with hopes of becoming a nurse, but life had other plans. Her mother's medical bills back home consumed every penny she earned from her part-time job at a laundromat. The small apartment she shared with 2 other girls was barely affordable, and this month she had chosen to pay rent instead of buying groceries. As she passed the restaurant's back entrance, she noticed the kitchen staff taking out bags of leftover food to the dumpster. Her pride wrestled with her hunger, but hunger won. She approached slowly, her heart pounding with embarrassment. "Excuse me?" she called softly to a young waiter carrying bags. "I was wondering, would it be possible to have some of the food you're throwing away?" The waiter looked uncomfortable and shook his head quickly. "Sorry, we can't do that. Company policy." He hurried past her, avoiding eye contact. Maya felt tears sting her eyes but refused to let them fall. She was about to turn away when she heard a deep voice behind her. "What seems to be the problem here?" She turned to see a tall man in an expensive navy suit. His silver hair was perfectly styled, and his watch probably cost more than she made in a year. This was clearly someone important. Maybe the restaurant owner. "Nothing, sir. I was just leaving," Maya said quietly, lowering her eyes. But the man stepped closer and something made her look up. When their eyes met, she saw something unexpected in his gaze. Not pity or disgust, but genuine concern and curiosity. "You asked for leftover food?" he asked gently. Maya's cheeks burned with shame, but she nodded. "Yes, sir, I haven't eaten in a while and I saw the food being thrown away. I thought maybe—" The man studied her face carefully. There was intelligence in her eyes, and despite her obvious hunger and worn clothes, she carried herself with dignity. Something about her reminded him of someone, though he couldn't place who. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya Thompson, sir." "I'm Richard Castellano," he said, extending his hand. Maya hesitated before shaking it, surprised by his warm, firm grip. "Tell me, Maya, what brought you to ask for food here?" Maya hesitated. She had learned that most people didn't really want to hear about her struggles, but something in Richard's eyes encouraged honesty. "I moved here from Georgia 6 months ago. My mother is sick, and I send most of my money home for her treatments. This month I had to choose between rent and food, and I chose rent. I work at Thompson's laundromat on 5th Street, but it's not enough." Richard listened without interrupting. He had built his fortune in real estate and technology, starting from nothing 40 years ago. He remembered the gnawing pain of hunger, the shame of asking for help, the constant worry about money. But there was something else about Maya that struck him deeply. "You mentioned you're from Georgia. What part?" "Small town called Millfield. You probably never heard of it." Richard's expression changed suddenly. His eyes widened slightly, and he took a step closer. "Millfield? Near the old cotton mill?" Maya looked surprised. "Yes, exactly. How did you know?" "What was your mother's name before she married?" "Sarah Jenkins." "Why do you ask, Mr. Castellano?" Richard felt his heart racing. Sarah Jenkins. The name he had been searching for decades. The girl he had loved and lost when he was just 18, before he left Millfield to seek his fortune in the city. The girl who had been pregnant with his child when her father forced them apart, threatening Richard's life if he ever came back. "Maya," he said carefully, "how old are you?" 23, sir." Richard did quick math in his head. The timing was right, but he needed to be sure. "Your mother, does she have a small scar above her left eyebrow? And does she make the most incredible peach cobbler in the world?" Maya's mouth fell open. How could you possibly know that? Richard's eyes filled with tears he had held back for decades. Because I loved your mother once, more than I've ever loved anyone. And if I'm right about what I think, Maya, I believe I'm your father. The words hung in the air between them like a bridge spanning years of separation and pain. Maya stared at him, processing this impossible revelation. Her mother had always been vague about her father, saying only that he was a good man who had to leave town before Maya was born. That's impossible, Maya whispered. My mother said he died in an accident. Your mother told you that to protect both of us, Richard said gently. Her father threatened to have me killed if I didn't leave town and never come back. I was poor then, just a kid with big dreams and no money. He said I would ruin Sarah's life. I left, but I never stopped loving her. I never stopped wondering about the child I might have had. Maya felt dizzy. The hunger, the emotional shock, the impossibility of this moment. It was all too much. She swayed slightly, and Richard immediately stepped forward to steady her. Let's get you some food, he said firmly, and then we'll figure this out together. He led her through the restaurant's front entrance. The host immediately approached with a worried expression, clearly recognizing Richard as someone very important. Mr. Castellano, your usual table? Yes, and bring us the best of everything you have. This young lady is very hungry. As they sat down at a table overlooking the city, Maya felt like she was in a dream. The soft lighting, the elegant surroundings, the man across from her who might be her father, it all seemed surreal. Maya, Richard said gently, I know this is overwhelming, but I want you to know that regardless of what we discover about our connection, I'm not going to let you go hungry again. I'm not going to let you struggle alone. Maya looked into his eyes and saw the same kindness her mother had always shown her. Maybe, just maybe, this impossible story was true. And if it was, everything in her life was about to change. The waiter brought plate after plate of delicious food, grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and a chocolate dessert that looked too beautiful to eat. Maya tried to eat slowly, with dignity, but she was so hungry that she couldn't help herself. Richard watched her eat with a mixture of joy and heartbreak. Joy at finding her, heartbreak at realizing how much she had been struggling, if she was truly his daughter, and every instinct told him she was. Then he had 40 years of lost time to make up for. Tomorrow, he said, we're going to call your mother. Together. And we're going to get to the bottom of this mystery that has kept us apart for so long. Maya looked up from her meal, sauce on her chin and hope in her eyes for the first time in months. Do you really think it's possible? That you're my father? Maya, Richard said with certainty. I know it in my heart. You have your mother's eyes, but you have my stubborn chin. And the way you asked for help today, with dignity, even in desperation, that's exactly what I would have done at your age. As Maya continued eating, Richard made a silent promise to himself. Whether or not the DNA tests confirmed what his heart already knew, he would make sure this remarkable young woman never had to ask for leftovers again. He would make sure she achieved every dream she had ever dared to dream. The first miracle had already happened. They had found each other. But Richard suspected this was only the beginning of something much bigger, something that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Maya woke up in a hotel room that cost more per night than she made in a week. Richard had insisted she stay there rather than return to her cramped apartment. Everything felt like a dream. The soft bed, the room service breakfast, the fact that she might have found her father after 23 years. Her phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock. Richard's voice was gentle but excited. Maya, are you ready to call your mother? I've been awake all night thinking about this conversation. Maya's hands trembled as she dialed her mother's number. Sarah Thompson answered on the second ring, her voice weak from her ongoing illness. Maya, honey, you're calling early. Is everything okay? Mom, I need to ask you about something important. I'm here with a man named Richard Castellano. He says he knew you in Millfield. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Maya could hear her mother's sharp intake of breath. Richard? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. My Richard. Mom, he says he's my father. Sarah began to cry. Deep, sobbing tears that had been held back for decades. Oh, my sweet girl, I never imagined you would find each other. So it's true? Maya asked, her own voice breaking. Put him on the phone, Sarah said through her tears. Maya handed the phone to Richard with shaking hands. His voice was thick with emotion when he spoke. Sarah? Is it really you? Richard, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what my father did to us. I'm sorry for the lies I had to tell. Sarah, my love, you have nothing to apologize for. You were protecting our daughter. You were protecting yourself. I understand now. I wanted to tell her about you so many times, Sarah continued, but I was afraid that you had moved on, that you wouldn't want us in your life. I read about you in magazines sometimes. You became so successful, so important. I thought maybe it was better if Maya never knew. Richard closed his eyes, imagining the weight Sarah had carried all these years. I never stopped loving you, Sarah. I never stopped thinking about you and our child. I tried to come back once about 10 years ago, but your father told me you had married someone else and moved away. He lied, Sarah said bitterly. He lied about everything. I never married Richard. I raised Maya alone. I told her that her father had died because I couldn't bear to tell her that he had been forced to abandon us. Maya listened to this conversation with tears streaming down her face. All her life, she had wondered about her father, imagined what he might have been like, why he had died so young. Now she learned that he had been alive all along, successful and wealthy, but kept away from them by her grandfather's cruelty. Richard spoke again. Sarah, how sick are you? Maya told me about your medical bills. I have cancer, Richard. Stage 3. The treatments are expensive, and Maya has been struggling so hard to help me. I've been telling her to stop sending money, to take care of herself, but she won't listen. That's because she's your daughter, Richard said with a proud smile. And apparently mine too. She has your caring heart and what I hope is my determination. After an hour of conversation, Sarah finally asked to speak to Maya again. Baby girl, she said, I want you to know that everything your father and I are telling you is the truth. I have letters he wrote me, pictures of us together. Even the DNA test I had done years ago to prove paternity in case I ever needed it. You had a DNA test done? Maya asked in surprise. When you were 5, I was very sick with pneumonia. I was afraid I might die, and I wanted to have proof of who your father was in case you ever needed to find him. I still have the results. Richard Castellano is definitely your biological father. Maya looked at Richard, who was wiping tears from his eyes. We don't even need new tests, she said softly. Maya, Richard said, taking the phone back, I want to bring you both here to the city. I want to get your mother the best medical care available. Money is no object. I can't leave my job, Maya protested weakly. You don't need that job anymore, Richard said firmly. You're my daughter. Everything I have worked for, everything I have built. It's all meaningless without family to share it with. I want to take care of you both. I want to make up for 23 years of lost time. But Maya shook her head. I appreciate that, I really do. But I don't want to just become dependent on you. I have my own dreams, my own goals. Richard smiled, recognizing his own independent spirit in her words. What are your dreams, Maya? I want to be a nurse. I want to help people the way the nurses helped my mom when she was first diagnosed, but I can't afford nursing school. Then I'll pay for nursing school, Richard said immediately. The best nursing program in the country. I don't want charity, Maya said, lifting her chin with the same stubborn pride Richard remembered from his own youth. It's not charity. It's a father investing in his daughter's future. But if it makes you feel better, consider it a loan. You can pay me back after you become a successful nurse. Maya considered this. What about my mother? She needs to come here for treatment. I'm already making calls, Richard said. I know the best oncologists in the city. Your mother will have an appointment this week. But the cost? Maya, let me tell you something. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But until yesterday, I had no one to spend it on who really mattered. You and your mother are my family. You're my everything now. That afternoon, Richard took Maya shopping for clothes and necessities. She protested at first, uncomfortable with accepting expensive gifts, but Richard explained that he had been waiting 23 years to buy his daughter things she needed. When you were little, he said, as they walked through an upscale department store, I used to imagine taking you shopping for your first day of school, for prom dresses, for college. I missed all of that. Please let me have this. Maya tried on dress after dress, each more beautiful than the last. She had never owned anything so nice. In the dressing room mirror, she could see both her mother's gentle beauty and something else, a confidence and strength that she now realized came from Richard. There's something else I want to give you, Richard said as they loaded shopping bags into his car. Something that belonged to your mother. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple but elegant ring with a small diamond. I bought this for your mother the week before her father made me leave town. I was going to propose to her, ask her to run away with me. I've carried it with me for 23 years, hoping someday I might see her again. Maya stared at the ring, overwhelmed by the romance and tragedy of her parents' story. I want you to take it to her, Richard continued. Tell her that my love for her never died, that if she'll have me, I want to spend whatever years we have left together, as a family. What if she says no? Maya asked. What if too much time has passed? Richard smiled. Then I'll respect her decision. But Maya, when I heard her voice on the phone today, when she called me her Richard, I knew that some things don't change. Some love is strong enough to survive decades of separation. That evening, Maya called her mother again to tell her about everything that had happened. She described the shopping trip, the beautiful clothes, the ring that Richard had carried for 23 years. He still loves you, Mom, Maya said, and I think you still love him too. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I never stopped loving him, baby girl, but I'm sick, and I'm not the young woman he fell in love with. And he's not the poor boy you fell in love with, Maya pointed out. But the important things, the things that matter, those haven't changed. He still has the same kind heart, the same determination. He spent all day today trying to make sure I felt loved and cared for. That's who he is. What do you think I should do? Sarah asked. I think you should let him come home to Georgia to get you. I think you should give love a second chance. I think our family has been broken apart long enough. Sarah began to cry again, but this time they were tears of hope rather than sadness. Okay, she whispered. Tell him yes. Tell him to come get me. Maya smiled, looking out the hotel window at the city lights below. In less than 24 hours, her entire world had changed. She had found her father, discovered the truth about her family's past, and opened the door to a future she had never dared to imagine. The miracle that had begun with her request for leftover food was continuing to unfold, bringing healing not just to her empty stomach, but to hearts that had been broken for far too long. 3 days later, Richard's private jet touched down on the small airstrip outside Millfield, Georgia. Maya sat beside him, nervous about returning to her hometown as the daughter of a millionaire. Everything looked smaller than she remembered, but somehow more precious now that she understood her family's history here. Sarah Thompson was waiting at the tiny terminal, thin from her cancer treatments, but radiant with anticipation. When she saw Richard step off the plane, 23 years seemed to melt away. He was older, grayer, wearing an expensive suit instead of the jeans and t-shirt she remembered, but his eyes were exactly the same. They ran to each other like teenagers, embracing with tears streaming down both their faces. Maya watched from a distance, giving them this moment they had waited decades for. "You're more beautiful than ever," Richard whispered into Sarah's hair. "You're a terrible liar," Sarah laughed through her tears. "But I love you for saying it." "I'm not lying. You're the mother of my daughter. You raised her to be incredible, kind, strong woman despite everything you faced alone. That makes you the most beautiful woman in the world to me." Maya finally approached them, and they pulled her into their embrace. For the first time in her life, she was hugging both her parents at the same time. "I can't believe this is real," Sarah said, looking back and forth between Richard and Maya. "I can't believe we're all together." "It's real, Mom," Maya said. "And it's just the beginning." They spent the day in Millfield, visiting the places where Richard and Sarah had fallen in love. The old cotton mill where Richard had worked summers during high school, the creek where they used to meet secretly, the church where Sarah's father had been a deacon, using his religious authority to justify keeping them apart. "He told me you were no good," Sarah said as they walked past the church. "He said you would abandon me and the baby, that poor boys like you always did. He said I would end up disgraced and alone. Instead, he created the exact situation he claimed to be preventing," Richard said bitterly. "He made you raise our daughter alone, made you struggle financially, made Maya grow up without a father." "But look how she turned out," Sarah said, watching Maya explore the church playground where she had played as a child. "She's everything good about both of us. Maybe everything happened the way it was supposed to." Richard considered this. "I used to think that if I hadn't been forced to leave, I never would have become successful. I would have stayed in Millfield, worked at the mill, maybe never given you and Maya the life you deserved." "You would have given us love," Sarah said simply. "That's all we ever really needed." "Well, now you'll have both," Richard said, pulling the ring box from his pocket. "Sarah Jenkins, will you marry me? 23 years late, but with all the love I felt back then, plus everything I've learned about what really matters in life." Sarah looked at the simple ring she had dreamed about for decades. "Richard Castellano, yes. Yes, I will marry you." Maya cheered and clapped as Richard slipped the ring onto her mother's finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting all these years for this moment. That evening they had dinner at the only restaurant in town, a small diner that served home-cooked meals and gossip in equal measure. Word had already spread that Richard Castellano, the boy who had left town in disgrace, had returned as a millionaire. "People keep staring," Maya whispered. "Let them stare," Richard said. "I spent my whole life proving I was good enough for your mother. Now I get to show this whole town what they missed out on when they drove me away." But as the evening went on, Richard's anger at the town began to soften. An elderly woman approached their table hesitantly. "Richard, I'm Mrs. Patterson. I taught you in 4th grade." Richard remembered her, the one teacher who had believed in him, who had told him he was smart enough to succeed at anything. "Mrs. Patterson, it's wonderful to see you. I want you to know that not everyone in this town agreed with what Sarah's father did," she said quietly. "Many of us thought it was wrong to separate two young people who loved each other. I'm so glad you found your way back to each other." Similar conversations happened throughout the evening. People who had been children when Richard left, people who remembered Sarah's struggles as a single mother, people who had watched Maya grow up wondering about her father. Most were genuinely happy to see the family reunited. The next morning, they flew back to the city for Sarah's first appointment with the oncologist Richard had arranged. Dr. Martinez was one of the top cancer specialists in the country, and after reviewing Sarah's medical records and conducting new tests, she had encouraging news. "The cancer hasn't spread as much as we initially thought," she explained. "With aggressive treatment, including some new therapies that weren't available in Georgia, I believe we can significantly extend your life expectancy. We might even achieve remission." Sarah cried with relief. Richard held her hand tightly, and Maya felt a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying finally lift from her shoulders. "What does treatment involve?" Richard asked. "A combination of chemotherapy, radiation, and immunotherapy. It will be intensive for the first 6 months, but I'm optimistic about the results." "Whatever it costs," Richard said immediately. "Richard," Sarah protested, "it's too much." "Sarah, you're going to be my wife. Maya is my daughter. There is no amount of money too much to save your life." Dr. Martinez smiled. "Actually, I should mention that Mr. Castellano has already established a foundation for cancer research. He's funding not just your treatment, but research that will help thousands of other patients." Maya looked at her father in surprise. "When did you do that?" "Yesterday, while you and your mother were resting. I figured if I could help other families avoid what we went through, it would give meaning to our suffering." Over the following weeks, their new life began to take shape. Maya enrolled in the best nursing program in the city. Her tuition paid, but with the understanding that she would work hard and excel. Sarah began her treatments, which were difficult but effective. Richard split his time between managing his business empire and taking care of his family. They found an apartment large enough for all of them, but Maya insisted on paying rent from the part-time job Richard helped her find at a medical clinic. She was determined to contribute to the family, not just receive from it. "You're as stubborn as I was at your age," Richard told her proudly. "I get it from both sides," Maya replied. "Mom was stubborn enough to survive 23 years as a single mother." The wedding was small but beautiful, held in the garden of Richard's estate. Maya served as maid of honor, walking her mother down the aisle to meet the father she had loved for 24 years. Many of their new friends from the city attended, along with Mrs. Patterson and several other supporters from Millfield. "I do," Sarah said, her voice strong despite her ongoing treatments. "I do," Richard replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Finally." Maya watched them exchange vows and thought about the strange journey that had brought them all together. A hungry young woman asking for leftovers had led to the reunion of a family separated by prejudice and fear. It seemed impossible, but here they were. After the wedding, Richard made an announcement to the gathered guests. "Many of you know that I built my fortune from nothing, starting with just a dream and determination. But I want you to know that today I'm richer than I've ever been, because today I have everything that really matters. I have the love of my life, and I have the daughter I thought I'd lost forever." He paused, looking at Maya with pride. "Maya Thompson is going to be an incredible nurse. She's going to help people heal, just like she helped heal our broken family. And I want to announce that when she graduates, she'll be joining the board of the Castellano Foundation, helping us expand our medical and educational programs." Maya felt overwhelmed by the trust he was placing in her, but also excited by the opportunity to help others the way she had been helped. "There's one more thing," Richard continued. "Sarah and I have talked about this, and we want to set up a scholarship fund for young people in situations like Maya was in. Kids with dreams, but no money to pursue them. We want to make sure that no one else has to ask for leftover food when what they really need is a chance to succeed." The crowd applauded, but Maya felt tears in her eyes. Her father understood not just her hunger for food, but her hunger for opportunity, for dignity, for a chance to make a difference in the world. 6 months later, Sarah's latest tests showed no signs of cancer. Maya was excelling in nursing school, top of her class and beloved by her instructors. Richard had never been happier, throwing himself into family life with the same passion he had once reserved for building his business empire. They were having dinner together when Maya made an announcement of her own. "I've been thinking about my future nursing career," she said. "I want to specialize in oncology. I want to help cancer patients and their families navigate treatment, not just medically, but emotionally and practically." "That's a beautiful goal," Sarah said. "Your own experience watching me go through this will make you an incredible advocate for patients." "Actually," Maya continued, "I want to focus on patients who can't afford the kind of treatment you received. I want to work with the foundation to create a program that provides both medical care and support services for low-income cancer patients." Richard smiled. "You want to turn your pain into purpose." "Exactly. Just like you did when you left Millfield and built something bigger than anyone thought possible. Just like Mom did when she raised me alone and taught me to be strong and kind." "We're very proud of you," Sarah said, reaching across the table to squeeze her daughter's hand. Maya looked around the table at her parents, her mother healthy and glowing, her father content in a way that money had never made him. The young woman who had once asked for leftover food was now planning to feed others, not just with meals, but with hope, care, and opportunity. "I love you both," she said simply. "We love you too," they replied together, and Maya realized that this was what a miracle really looked like. Not magic or divine intervention, but love persisting across decades, family finding its way back together, and people using their experiences, both painful and joyful, to help others. The leftover food had been just the beginning. The real feast was love, forgiveness, and second chances served up by a universe that sometimes, just sometimes, makes everything work out exactly as it should.